Yes, so welcome to Vasily's Garden. How are we, folks? It's a nice sunny day. Well, that's what it looks like. I can tell you something, the wind level, we must be pushing at least 60, 70, if not higher, kilometres an hour. I reckon in some cases it'd be up to 90 k's an hour. Now, I'm standing here. I'm going to check out this capsicum that I've tried to overwinter. You can see they've got curled leaves and all things like that, but they're still relatively good, meaning alive. They haven't got much dieback on them. And you know, with capsicums, from my past experience for many years of growing them and seeing my father grow them as well, and obviously a lot of home gardens that I visited, I've seen capsicums last 3-4 years, if not longer, depending on where you are based in Australia. But in Victoria, at least 2 to 3 years of age. And it's not the ones that climb on the fence line that you see that can grow into a huge hedge like a vine. We're talking your typical long sweet yellows, your California Wonder, giant bullhorns, cayenne pepper ones, things like that. And what I've got here is an array. These are Cal Wonder or something like that, whatever they call them. I think we've got a different name for them. And we've also got long sweet yellows on the other side there as well. If we have a close look, now I've got the hothouse. It's not a complete hothouse. It's more just a bit of protection that they have from the cold winter night so we don't get frost settling on them. They're still open to both ends so they get the draft. Oh, that was a door hitting, sorry. I was worried about this landing on my head. Can't be that bad. Anyway, I built it myself anyway. Back to these ones here. The first one, apart from the curled leaf, and that's typical this time of year, there shouldn't be a lot of sap being drawn up at the moment, or there shouldn't be any photosynthesis going on, or very little of it, because there's no sap flow. Normally this time of the year they're either dormant or actually being pulled out completely, because most of you would pull them out. They're classed as an annual. But you'll find that these would almost grow like a perennial if the frost doesn't knock them out. So they go dormant during the winter, drop their leaves, and you can tell these ones haven't dropped their leaves. But in fact, if I have a look at this one here, we have got some dieback. Have a look here, see this dieback there, and you can see it's working its way back down through the green parts of the stem. Now, this plant isn't really growing actively. It's not showing any signs yet. If we continue getting warm weather, now today, apart from the higher winds, it's relatively warm, and yesterday as well, the plant will start to show signs of growth sprouting up. And in fact, if I look here carefully, that looks like there is a little bit there. Not a hell of a lot. But back to the dieback, you shouldn't cut these off. Still too early to cut these off. The time to cut this back, from my experience, is as soon as you see sap flowing through. As soon as you start to see bud burst or bud swell on the tips of these plants. Anywhere along there you'll find some of them starting to push out flower buds, be it all, or even leaves. That's when you know the sap's actively moving again. The plant's connecting with the soil below, the microbes in the earth. And that's when you know that once you prune it, the sap will go and heal that cut you've created there. In this case here, if there's no sap and the plant's still relatively dormant, irrespective of it holding its leaves, it's still got a lot of calcium in the soil, and that's why it's still holding on pretty well. That's my judgment. If you cut it back there, you'll find you leave the open wound and it'll cause it to rot back even more or quicker. Let's have a quick look at the soil as well. Now this mix here, ground's pretty dry. This mix here, I top dressed it with the straw from the chook house, and there's a little bit of seed in there from wild weeds and grasses growing in there, so you just got to be mindful about things like that. If you're going to take stuff out of your chook house and there's been wild grass growing in there. And I top dressed the soil underneath. What's going on here? What have we got in here? We have got, well, for starters, we got a worm already, composting worm. Beautiful. First dig, and we spotted some worms. This should be nice and rich. Now I'm worried about the roots underneath here because it'll be quite, look how close I am to the plant. And we have got some other weeds growing through here. I just don't want to dig up the roots and disturb them too much. I just want to see if we've got activity, and we've got some plant ties. Look at that. Plastic in here too. My bad, I buried that. That's put you back in there. I just want to get a handful of this soil and see how good it is. It's getting there. It's starting to hold together, not 100% yet. So the texture of what we're looking for, the composting humus, and we want it to be loose and friable like that, so when it breaks away. So a little bit dry because it's been quite warm today and I really haven't given it a good water. But you know, the worm activity is a good sign, be it all one worm that I found, or Is that another worm? Yeah, another worm. Ah, we got worms in here. If you said that to your doctor, he'd give you a couple of pills, wouldn't he? Or she? We saw the dieback there. Have a look over here. This one's copped it the worst. So we've basically lost this entire stem, half of it on this side, which is still active, but I dare say this will all die off, and it may work its way down to the base. So this plant's got a high chance of dying off completely before we get into springtime. Look, it may sprout up, we don't know, but we'll just have to wait till spring and see what happens. But that sort of dieback, like a canker-like dieback, I dare say is going to be pretty detrimental to the longevity of this plant if it survives at all getting into spring. That'd be the worst one getting to spring, if it reaches spring at all. Now, I think that's the worst one. That one there's got a couple of diebacks on it and they're all protected. So let's just see what happens in springtime, and if I have to cut them back and they survive, great. If not, I'll just pull them out and we replant something else in there. But by comparison from the indoor ones that have been protected, and they look pretty miserable, and rightly so they should, have a look at something that looks even more miserable. These are outdoors. Can you see what I'm looking at? If you focus on this one here, well, that's the only one that's really green, or one of the better ones, if not the better one. Have a look over here. How miserable was that? That's given up the ghost. So that's going to come out. And I'm not too worried about leaving it in it. That one's doing okay. The tips are dying back a little bit, but you can see it's still relatively green at the bottom of the stem, and so are the other ones. So all of them are holding okay. I just noticed I left the capsicum on the last one. It's over ripened, never mind. And this tiny little one here, well, we've got a half decent stem there. It's holding on well, but it's got dieback on the top, and the same with this there. So if nature permits it, these will kick on well. If not, well, they'll die back really hard. But by comparison to the ones covered inside, and this time of the year, we get a lot of frost here, even though we only had a few this time, not a lot by comparison. It's still really cold. These outdoor ones, are, I didn't expect them to survive this long, to be honest with you. I really thought they were going to die off. But inside there, that little bit of plastic, even though it's open on both ends, works, folks. Hothouses, we'll need them. Just before we go start into rain, folks, have a look at this. Just thought to show you with the seedlings again. Day 4, day 5 it is, and they've been blown to bits, and I haven't watered today. I did water yesterday evening, and it's about to rain on them, so they're not going to get a water from me, but from Mother Nature itself. Check out our website, vasilisgarden.com, for our superfood specials, our black grit, and everything else we have online for you to enjoy. I'm looking at the dark clouds rolling. It's going to bucket down. From me, Vasili, Maresi. See you tomorrow.